Tonight, you'll be dozing off from the backseat of your parents' car, softly cradled by the gentle hum of the engine as it travels homeward late at night along a country highway. Imagine you are sitting in the back seat with your head nestled into a cozy pillow propped against the window. You are gazing out at the moonlit countryside, and on your face is a soft and secret smile. It's late Friday night, after playing in the pep band at your brother's basketball game far from home. Your kid's sister has nodded off already. She's laying across the wide seat with her head resting softly in your lap. You are tired too after a long week of high school and homework, but you're also full of wonder, and that smile on your face is perfectly concealed in the shadows, only illuminated sporadically by the flickering flashes of light cast from the headlights of oncoming cars. You rest your forehead against the cool glass of the window. Every now and then, a distant farmhouse light appears, towering like a lighthouse in the dark, casting bright beams across the endless, waterless ocean of a prairie. Now, slowly we'll begin to relax. First, with eyes closed, just become aware of your breathing, feeling your chest gently rise and fall again. Next, we'll try taking a few deeper breaths, filling our lungs with air, holding it, and then gently exhaling and letting it all go. Ready? Inhale deeply, hold for 3, 2, 1, and then exhale. One more time. Breathe in deeply, hold for 3, 2, 1, and then exhale. And try thinking to yourself, as I sit here in the back seat, I can feel gravity's pull tugging me gently back towards Earth. With every exhale, I can feel the weight of the day slipping away. I can feel my feet, my ankles, calves, knees, and my legs, each part of me relaxing deeper and becoming heavier and more relaxed. Up in the front seat, your parents recap and relive the big game. They talk of jump shots and fouls, rebounds and timeouts. You close your eyes, but when you picture the crowded gymnasium, you remember something much sweeter than basketball. Your mind drifts back, but now the memory of the night is soothing and hypnotic, somehow quieter, as if it all played out in slow motion. Sneakers squeaking on the hardwood floor, cheers blasting out from spirit sections choreographed by cheerleaders and mascots. The aroma of popcorn and hot dogs snaking its way from concessions all the way through the hot air, above the teams and players and referees, and then high into the packed stands where you and the band played and cheered and sang. You quietly reflect on how unexpected your first love appeared in your young life. It feels as if the universe brought it to you slowly, and yet, in the end, also unexpectedly in a flash. Now let's try taking a few more deep breaths. Ready? Breathe in deeply. Hold for 3, 2, 1, and then exhale. Try continuing on your own, and while doing this, try thinking to yourself, as I sit here, my whole body feels heavy and relaxed. With every exhale, I can feel gravity pulling me back towards Earth gently. I can feel my head, my shoulders, my neck becoming relaxed and at ease. And my legs are heavy and at peace with gravity's pull. Now my whole body, my legs and feet, my arms and hands, my torso, my head and neck and shoulders, my whole body is completely at peace, relaxed, and at ease. For weeks and weeks at band practice and at games, you had played right there next to each other, bumping elbows, close enough to catch quick flashes of fragrances, close enough for smiles, quick glances, silly and innocent flirtations without considering really when and where or if you might actually ever kiss. And then, unexpectedly, tonight, it just happened. while the whole gymnasium was on its feet, the whole world preoccupied with some monumental moment of a basketball game. It just happened right there in the minuscule universe between the two of you. When you think about it now, falling in love was a lot like those farmhouse lights out there in the darkness. Everything approached so slowly at first, off in the distance, hardly moving at all. And then, love gained momentum and approached you carefully and timidly, getting closer and closer, and before you knew it, before you both knew it, true love had rushed up on you in a heartbeat, irresistible and suddenly undeniable. You smile now, thinking how you had always imagined your first kiss would happen somewhere private and hidden, and yet, in the end, yours was out in the open and in front of hundreds of people who never even saw it. As your parents dial in the AM radio, you finally close your eyes and lean back.
Tonight's reading from the Journal of the First Voyage of Columbus begins with Friday, the 21st of December, 1492, and continues through Thursday, the 3rd of January, 1493. We open in the vast harbor he names the Sea of St. Thomas, where nearby villages crowd the green shore and canoes arrive with bread of ages, water, fruit, and parrots. Calms and contrary airs keep the ships close as messengers, chiefs, and great crowds exchange gifts and provisions. On Christmas night, the flagship is lost on a reef, and at dawn the local cacique sends large canoes and people to save crew and cargo, weeping at the news and guarding every item ashore. From the ship's timbers, the admiral orders a tower and fort, lays in stores and seed, and appoints 39 men with officers to remain. New Year's Day brings rhubarb gathered on the islet Amiga. On the 2nd, he takes leave of Guacanagari after a Lombard shot and a mock skirmish to stiffen his friends. And on the 3rd, he waits on rough seas and the return of islanders, preparing to depart when God grants fair wind. Journal of the First Voyage of Columbus. Friday, 21st of December. Today the admiral went with the ship's boats to examine this port, which he found to be such that it could not be equaled by any he had yet seen, but having praised the others so much, he knew not how to express himself, fearing that he will be looked upon as one who goes beyond the truth. He therefore contents himself with saying that he had old sailors with him who say the same. All the praises he has bestowed on the other ports are true, and that this is better than any of them is equally true. He further says, I have traversed the sea for 23 years without leaving it for any time worth counting, and I saw all the east and the west, going on the route of the north, which is England, and I have been to Guinea. But in all those parts there will not be found the perfection of harbors, always found better than another, that I with good care saw written. And I again affirm it was well written, that this one is better than all others, and will hold all the ships of the world secured with the oldest cables. From the entrance to the end is a distance of 5 leagues. The admiral saw some very well cultivated lands, although they are all so, and he sent 2 of the boat's crew to the top of a hill to see if any village was near, for none could be seen from the sea. At about 10 o'clock that night, certain Indians came in a canoe to see the admiral and the Christians, and they were given presents with which they were much pleased. The 2 men returned and reported that they had seen a very large village at a short distance from the sea. The admiral ordered the boat to row towards the place where the village was until they came near the land, when he saw two Indians who came to the shore apparently in a state of fear. So he ordered the boats to stop, and the Indians that were with the admiral were told to assure the two natives that no harm whatever was intended to them. Then they came nearer the sea, and the admiral nearer the land. As soon as the natives had got rid of their fear, so many came that they covered the ground with women and children, giving 1,000 thanks. They ran hither and thither to bring us bread made of neames, which they call ages, which is very white and good, and water in calabashes, and in earthen jars made like those of Spain, and everything else they had, and that they thought the admiral could want, and also willingly and cheerfully that it was wonderful. It cannot be said that, because what they gave was worth little. Therefore they gave liberally, because those who had pieces of gold gave as freely as those who had a calabash of water, and it is easy to know when a thing is given with a hearty desire to give. These are the admiral's words. These people have no spears nor any other arms, nor have any of the inhabitants of the whole island, which I believe to be very large. They go naked as when their mothers bore them, both men and women. In Guana and the other islands, the women wear a small clout of cotton in front, with which to cover their private parts, as large as the flap of a man's breeches, especially after they have passed the age of 12 years, but here neither old nor young do so. Also, the men in the other islands jealously hide their women from the Christians, but here they do not. The women have very beautiful bodies, and they were the first to come and give thanks to heaven, and to bring what they had, especially things to eat, such as bread of ages, nuts, and 4 or 5 kinds of fruits, some of which the admiral ordered to be preserved to be taken to the sovereigns. He says that the women did not do less in other ports before they were hidden, and he always gave orders that none of his people should annoy them, that nothing should be taken against their wills, and that everything that was taken should be paid for. Finally, he says that no one could believe that there could be such good-hearted people, so free to give, anxious to let the Christians have all they wanted, and when visitors arrived, running to bring everything to them. Afterwards, the admiral sent 6 Christians to the village to see what it was like, and the natives showed them all the honor they could devise and gave them all they had, for no doubt was any longer entertained that the admiral and all his people had come from heaven. And the same was believed by the Indians who were brought from the other islands, although they had now been told what they ought to think. When the 6 Christians had gone, some canoes came with people to ask the admiral to come to their village when he left the place where he was. Canoa is a boat in which they navigate, some large and others small. Seeing that this village of the chief was on the road and that many people were waiting there for him, the admiral went there, but before he could depart, an enormous crowd came to the shore, men, women, and children, crying out to him not to go, but to stay with them. The messengers from the other chief who had come to invite him were waiting with their canoes, that he might not go away, but come to see their chief, and so he did. On arriving where the chief was waiting for him with many things to eat, he ordered that all the people should sit down, and that the food should be taken to the boats where the admiral was on the seashore. When he saw that the admiral had received what he sent, all or most of the Indians ran to the village, which was near, to bring more food, parrots, and other things they had, with such frankness of heart that it was marvelous. The admiral gave them glass beads, brass trinkets, and bells, not because they asked for anything in return, but because it seemed right, and above all, because he now looked upon them as future Christians and subjects of the sovereigns, as much as the people of Castile. He further says that they want nothing except to know the language and be under governance, for all they may be told to do will be done without any contradiction. The admiral left this place to go to the ships, and the people, men, women, and children, cried out to him not to go, but remain with them. After the boats departed, several canoes full of people followed after them to the ship, who were received with much honor and given to eat. There had also come before another chief from the west, and many people even came swimming, the ship being over a good half-league from the shore. I sent certain persons to the chief who had gone back to ask him about these islands. He received them very well and took them to his village to give them some large pieces of gold. They arrived at a large river which the Indians crossed by swimming. The Christians were unable, so they turned back. In all this district there are very high mountains which seem to reach the sky, so that the mountain in the island of Tenerife appears as nothing in height and beauty, and they are all green with trees. Between them there are very delicious valleys, and at the end of this port to the south, there is a valley so large that the end of it is not visible, though no mountains intervene, so that it seems to be 15 or 20 leagues long. A river flows through it, and it is all inhabited and cultivated, and as green as Castile in May or June, but the night contains 14 hours, the land being so far north. This port is very good for all the winds that can blow, being enclosed and deep, and the shores peopled by a good and gentle race without arms or evil designs. Any ship may lie within it without fear that other ships will enter at night to attack her, because although the entrance is over 2 leagues wide, it is protected by reefs of rocks which are barely awash, and there is only a very narrow channel through the reef, which looks as if it had been artificially made, leaving an open door by which ships may enter. In the entrance there are 7 fathoms of depth up to the shore of a small flat island, which has a beach fringed with trees. The entrance is on the west side, and a ship can come without fear until she is close to the rock. On the northwest side there are 3 islands, and a great river a league from the cape on one side of the port. It is the best harbor in the world, and the admiral gave it the name of Puerto de la Mar de Santo Tomas, because today it was that saint's day. The admiral called it a sea, owing to its size. Saturday, 22nd of December. At dawn, the admiral made sail to shape a course in search of the islands which the Indians had told him contained much gold, some of them having more gold than earth. But the weather was not favorable, so he anchored again and sent away the boat to fish with a net. The lord of that land, who had a place near there, sent a large canoe full of people, including one of his principal attendants, to invite the admiral to come with the ships to his land, where he would give him all he wanted. The chief sent by this servant a girdle which, instead of a purse, had attached to it a mask with 2 large ears made of beaten gold, the tongue and the nose. These people are very open-hearted, and whatever they are asked for, they give most willingly, while when they themselves ask for anything, they do so as if receiving a great favor. So says the admiral. They brought the canoe alongside the boat and gave the girdle to a boy. Then they came on board with their mission. It took a good part of the day before they could be understood. Not even the Indians who were on board understood them well, because they have some differences of words for the names of things. At last, their invitation was understood by signs. The admiral determined to start tomorrow, although he did not usually sail on a Sunday, owing to a devout feeling, and not on account of any superstition whatever, but in the hope that these people would become Christians through the willingness they show, and that they will be subjects of the sovereigns of Castile, and because he now holds them to be so, and that they may serve with love, he wished and endeavored to please them. Before leaving today, the admiral sent 6 men to a large village 3 leagues to the westward, because the chief had come the day before and said that he had some pieces of gold. When the Christians arrived, the secretary of the admiral, who was one of them, took the chief by the hand. The admiral had sent him to prevent the others from imposing upon the Indians. As the Indians are so simple and the Spaniards so avaricious and grasping, it does not suffice that the Indians should give them all they want in exchange for a bead or a bit of glass, but the Spaniards would take everything without any return at all. The admiral always prohibits this, although, with the exception of gold, the things given by the Indians are of little value. But the admiral, seeing the simplicity of the Indians, and that they will give a piece of gold in exchange for 6 beads, gave the order that nothing should be received from them unless something had been given in exchange. Thus the chief took the secretary by the hand and led him to his house, followed by the whole village, which was very large. He made his guests eat, and the Indians brought them many cotton fabrics, and spun cotton in skeins. In the afternoon the chief gave them 3 very fat geese and some small pieces of gold. A great number of people went back with them, carrying all the things they had got by barter, and they also carried the Spaniards themselves across streams and muddy places. The admiral ordered some things to be given to the chief, and both he and his people were very well satisfied. truly believing that the Christians had come from heaven, so that they considered themselves fortunate in beholding them. On this day, more than 120 canoes came to the ships, all full of people, and all bringing something, especially their bread and fish, and fresh water in earthen jars. They also brought seeds of good kinds, and there was a grain which they put into a porringer of water and drank it. The Indians who were on board said that this was very wholesome. Sunday, the 23rd of December. The admiral could not go with the ships to that land whither he had been invited by the chief, because there was no wind, but he sent, with the 3 messengers who were waiting for the boats, some people, including the secretary. While they were gone, he sent 2 of the Indians he had on board with him to the villages which were near the anchorage. They returned to the ship with a chief, who brought the news that there was a great quantity of gold in that island of Hispaniola, and that people from other parts came to buy it. They said that here the admiral would find as much as he wanted. Others came who confirmed the statement that there was much gold in the island and explained the way it was collected. The admiral understood all this with much difficulty. Nevertheless, he concluded that there was a very great quantity in those parts, and that if he could find the place whence it was got, there would be abundance, and if not, there would be nothing. He believed there must be a great deal, because during the 3 days that he had been in that port, he had got several pieces of gold, and he could not believe that it was brought from another land. Our Lord, who holds all things in his hands, look upon me, and grant what shall be for his service. These are the admiral's words. He says that, according to his reckoning, 1,000 people had visited the ship, all of them bringing something. Before they come alongside, at a distance of a crossbow shot, they stand up in the canoe with what they bring in their hands, crying out, "Take it, take it." He also reckoned that 500 came to the ship swimming, because they had no canoes, the ship being near a league from the shore. Among the visitors, 5 chiefs had come, sons of chiefs, with all their families of wives and children, to see the Christians. The admiral ordered something to be given to all, because such gifts were all well employed. May our Lord favor me by his clemency, that I may find this gold, I mean the mine of gold, which I hold to be here, many saying that they know it. These are his words. The boats arrived at night and said that there was a grand road as far as they went, and they found many canoes, with people who went to see the admiral and the Christians at the mountain of Caribatan. They held it for certain that if the Christmas festival was kept in that port, all the people of the island would come, which they calculated to be larger than England. All the people went with them to the village, which they said was the largest and the best laid out with streets of any they had seen. The admiral says it is part of the Punta Santa, almost 3 leagues southeast. The canoes go very fast with paddles, so they went ahead to apprise the cacique, as they call the chief. Up to that time, the admiral had not been able to understand whether cacique meant king or governor. They also have another name for a great man, Taíno, but it was not clear whether they used it for lord or governor or judge. At last, the cacique came to them and joined them in the square, which was clean swept, as was all the village. The population numbered over 2,000 men. This king did great honor to the people from the ship, and every inhabitant brought them something to eat and drink. Afterwards, the king gave each of them cotton cloths, such as women wear, with parrots for the admiral, and some pieces of gold. The people also gave cloths and other things from their houses to the sailors. And as for the trifles they got in return, they seemed to look upon them as relics. When they wanted to return in the afternoon, he asked them to stay until the next day, and all the people did the same. When they saw that the Spaniards were determined to go, they accompanied them most of the way, carrying the gifts of the cacique on their backs, as far as the boats, which had been left at the mouth of the river. Monday, the 24th of December. Before sunrise, the admiral got underway with the land breeze among the numerous Indians who had come to the ship yesterday and had made signs that there was gold in the island, naming the places whence it was collected. The admiral noticed one who seemed more fully informed, or who spoke with more willingness, so he asked him to come with the Christians and show them the position of the gold mines. This Indian has a companion or relation with him, and among other places they mentioned where gold was found, they named Chipango, which they called Cibao. Here they said that there was a great quantity of gold, and that the cacique carried banners of beaten gold, but they added that it was very far off to the eastward. Here the admiral addresses the following words to the sovereigns. Your highnesses may believe that there is no better nor gentler people in the world. Your highnesses ought to rejoice that they will soon become Christians, and that they will be taught the good customs of your kingdom. A better race there cannot be, and both the people and the lands are in such quantity that I know not how to write it. I have spoken in the superlative degree of the country and people of Juana, which they call Cuba, but there is as much difference between them and this island and people as between day and night. I believe that no one who should see them could say less than I have said. And I repeat that the things and the great villages of this island of Española, which they call Bohio, are wonderful. All here have a loving manner and gentle speech, unlike the others, who seem to be menacing when they speak. Both men and women are of good stature, and not black. It is true that they all paint, some with black, others with other colors, but most with red. I know that they are tanned by the sun, but this does not affect them much. Their houses and villages are pretty, each with a chief who acts as their judge and who is obeyed by them. All these lords use few words and have excellent manners. Most of their orders are given by a sign with the hand, which is understood with surprising quickness. All these are the words of the admiral. He who would enter the sea of Santo Tomé ought to stand for a good league across the mouth to a flat island in the middle, which was named La Amiga, pointing her head toward it. When the ship is within a stone's throw of it, the course should be altered to make for the eastern shore, leaving the west side, and this shore, and not the other, should be kept on board, because a great reef runs out from the west, and even beyond that there are 3 sunken rocks. This reef comes within a Lombard shot of the Amiga Island. Between them there are 7 fathoms at least, with a gravelly bottom. Within, a harbor will be found large enough for all the ships in the world, which would be there without need of cables. There is another reef with sunken rocks on the east side of the island of Amiga, which are extensive and run out to sea, reaching within 2 leagues of the cape. But it appeared that between them there was an entrance within 2 Lombard shots of Amiga, on the west side of Monte Caribatan, where there was a good and very large port. Tuesday, 25th of December, Christmas. Navigating yesterday with little wind from Santo Tomé to Punta Santa, and being a league from it at about 11 o'clock at night, the admiral went down to get some sleep, for he had not had any rest for 2 days and a night. As it was calm, the sailor who steered the ship thought he would go to sleep, leaving the tiller in charge of a boy. The admiral had forbidden this throughout the voyage, whether it was blowing or whether it was calm. The boys were never to be entrusted with the helm. The admiral had no anxiety respecting sandbanks and rocks, because when he sent the boats to that king on Sunday, they had passed to the east of Punta Santa, at least 3 leagues and a half. And the sailors had seen all the coast, and the rocks there are from Punta Santa, for a distance of 3 leagues to the east-southeast. They saw the course that should be taken, which had not been the case before during this voyage. It pleased our Lord that at 12 o'clock at night, when the admiral had retired to rest, and when all had fallen asleep, seeing that it was a dead calm and the sea like glass, the tiller being in the hands of a boy, the current carried the ship on one of the sandbanks. If it had not been night, the bank could have been seen, and the surf on it could be heard for a good league, but the ship ran upon it so gently that it could scarcely be felt. The boy, who felt the helm and heard the rush of the sea, cried out. The admiral at once came up, and so quickly that no one had felt that the ship was aground. Presently, the master of the ship, whose watch it was, came on deck. The admiral ordered him and others to launch the boat, which was on the poop, and lay out an anchor astern. The master, with several others, got into the boat, and the admiral thought that they did so with the object of obeying his orders. But they did so in order to take refuge with the caravel, which was half a league to leeward. The caravel would not allow them to come on board acting judiciously, and they therefore returned to the ship. But the caravel's boat arrived first. When the admiral saw that his own people fled in this way, the water rising and the ship being across the sea, seeing no other course, he ordered the masts to be cut away and the ship to be lightened as much as possible, to see if she would come off. But as the water continued to rise, nothing more could be done. Her side fell over across the sea, but it was nearly calm. Then the timbers opened and the ship was lost. The admiral went to the caravel to arrange about the reception of the ship's crew, and as a light breeze was blowing from the land and continued during the greater part of the night, while it was unknown how far the bank extended, he hove her to until daylight. He then went back to the ship inside the reef, first having sent a boat on shore with Diego de Arana of Cordova, alguazil of the fleet, and Pedro Gutierrez, gentleman of the king's bedchamber, to inform the king who had invited the ships to come on the previous Saturday. His town was about 1.5 leagues from the sandbank. They reported that he wept when he heard the news, and he sent all his people with large canoes to unload the ship. This was done, and they landed all there was between decks in a very short time. Such was the great promptitude and diligence shown by that king. He himself, with brothers and relations, was actively assisting as well in the ship as in the care of the property when it was landed, that all might be properly guarded. Now and then he sent one of his relations weeping to the admiral to console him, saying that he must not feel sorrow or annoyance, for he would supply all that was needed. The admiral assured the sovereigns that there could not have been such good watch kept in any part of Castile, for that there was not even a needle missing. He ordered that all the property should be placed by some houses which the king placed at his disposal until they were emptied, when everything would be stowed and guarded in them. Armed men were placed round the stores to watch all night. The king and all his people wept, says the admiral. They are a loving people without covetousness and fit for anything, and I assure your highnesses that there is no better land nor people. They love their neighbors as themselves, and their speech is the sweetest and gentlest in the world, and always with a smile. Men and women go as naked as when their mothers bore them. Your highnesses should believe that they have very good customs among themselves. The king is a man of remarkable presence, and with a certain self-contained manner that is a pleasure to see. They have good memories, wish to see everything, and ask the use of what they see. All this is written by the admiral. Wednesday, the 26th of December. Today at sunrise the king of that land came to the Caravel Niña, where the admiral was, and said to him, almost weeping, that he need not be sorry, for that he would give him all he had, that he had placed 2 large houses at the disposal of the Christians who were on shore, and that he would give more if they were required, and as many canoes as could load from the ship and discharge on shore, with as many people as were wanted. This had all been done yesterday, without so much as a needle being missed. So honest are they, says the admiral, without any covetousness for the goods of others, and so above all was that virtuous king. While the admiral was talking to him, another canoe arrived from a different place, bringing some pieces of gold, which the people in the canoe wanted to exchange for a hawk's bell, for there was nothing they desired more than these bells. They had scarcely come alongside when they called and held up the gold, saying, "Chuck, chuck for the bells," for they are quite mad about them. After the king had seen this, and when the canoes which came from other places had departed, he called the admiral and asked him to give orders that one of the bells was to be kept for another day, when he would bring 4 pieces of gold the size of a man's hand. The admiral rejoiced to hear this, and afterwards a sailor who came from the shore told him that it was wonderful what pieces of gold the men on shore were getting in exchange for next to nothing. For a needle they got a piece of gold worth 2 castellanos, and that this was nothing to what it would be within a month. The king rejoiced much when he saw that the admiral was pleased. He understood that his friend wanted much gold, and he said by signs that he knew where there was, in the vicinity, a very large quantity, so that he must be in good heart, for he should have as much as he wanted. He gave some account of it, especially saying that in Chipango, which they call Chibao, it is so abundant that it is of no value, and that they will bring it, although there is also much more in the island of Española, which they call Bojillo, and in the province of Caritaba. The king dined on board the caravel with the admiral, and afterwards went on shore, where he received the admiral with much honor. He gave him a collation consisting of 3 or 4 kinds of AJs, with shrimps and game, and other viands they have, besides the bread they call kazavi. He then took the admiral to see some groves of trees near the houses, and they were accompanied by at least 1,000 people, all naked. The lord had on a shirt and a pair of gloves given to him by the admiral, and he was more delighted with the gloves than with anything else. In his manner of eating, both as regards the high-bred air and the peculiar cleanliness, he clearly showed his nobility. After he had eaten, he remained some time at table, and they brought him certain herbs with which he rubbed his hands. The admiral thought that this was done to make them soft, and they also gave him water for his hands. After the meal, he took the admiral to the beach. The admiral then sent for a Turkish bow and a quiver of arrows, and took a shot at a man of his company who had been warned. The chief, who knew nothing about arms, as they neither have them nor use them, thought this a wonderful thing. He, however, began to talk of those of Canaba, whom they call Caribes. They come to capture the natives and have bows and arrows without iron, of which there is no memory in any of these lands, nor of steel, nor any other metal except gold and copper. Of copper, the admiral had only seen very little. The admiral said by signs that the sovereigns of Castile would order the Caribs to be destroyed, and that all should be taken with their hands tied together. He ordered a lombard and a handgun to be fired off, and seeing the effect caused by its force and what the shots penetrated, the king was astonished. When his people heard the explosion, they all fell on the ground. They brought the admiral a large mask which had pieces of gold for the eyes and ears, and in other parts, and this they gave, with other trinkets of gold that the same king had put on the head and round the neck of the admiral, and of other Christians, to whom they also gave many pieces. The admiral received much pleasure and consolation from these things, which tempered the anxiety and sorrow he felt at the loss of the ship. He knew our Lord had caused the ship to stop here, that a settlement might be formed. From this, he says, originated so many things that, in truth, the disaster was really a piece of good fortune. For it is certain that if I had not lost the ship, I should have gone on without anchoring in this place, which is within a great bay, having 2 or 3 reefs of rock. I should not have left people in the country during this voyage, nor even if I had desired to leave them, should I have been able to obtain so much information, nor such supplies and provisions for a fortress. And true it is that many people had asked me to give them leave to remain. Now I have given orders for a tower and a fort, both well built, and a large cellar, not because I believe that such defenses will be necessary. I believe that with the force I have with me, I could subjugate the whole island, which I believe to be larger than Portugal and the population double. But they are naked and without arms and hopelessly timid. Still, it is advisable to build this tower, being so far from your highnesses. The people may thus know the skill of the subjects of your highnesses and what they can do, and will obey them with love and fear. So they make preparations to build the fortress, with provision of bread and wine for more than a year, with seeds for sowing. The ship's boat, a caulker and carpenter, a gunner and cooper. Many among these men have a great desire to serve your highnesses and to please me by finding out where the mine is whence the gold is brought. Thus everything is got in readiness to begin the work. Above all, it was so calm that there was scarcely wind or wave when the ship ran aground. This is what the admiral says, and he adds more to show that it was great good luck and the settled design of God that the ship should be lost in order that people might be left behind. If it had not been for the treachery of the master and his boat's crew, who were all or mostly his countrymen, in neglecting to lay out the anchor so as to haul the ship off in obedience to the admiral's orders, she would have been saved. In that case, the same knowledge of the land as has been gained in these days would not have been secured, for the admiral always proceeded with the object of discovering, and never intended to stop more than a day at any one place, unless he was detained by the wind. Still, the ship was very heavy and unsuited for discovery. It was the people of Palos who obliged him to take such a ship by not complying with what they had promised to the king and queen, namely, to supply suitable vessels for this expedition. This they did not do. Of all that there was on board the ship, not a needle, nor a board, nor a nail was lost, for she remained as whole as when she sailed, except that it was necessary to cut away and level down in order to get out the jars and merchandise, which were landed and carefully guarded. He trusted in God that when he returned from Spain, according to his intention, he would find a ton of gold collected by barter by those he was to leave behind, and that they would have found the mine and spices in such quantities that the sovereigns would, in 3 years, be able to undertake and fit out an expedition to go and conquer the Holy Sepulchre. With this in view, he says, I protested to your highnesses that all the profits of this my enterprise should be spent in the conquest of Jerusalem, and your highnesses laughed and said that it pleased them, and that without this they entertained that desire. These are the admiral's words. Thursday, 27th of December. The king of that land came alongside the caravel at sunrise and said that he had sent for gold, and that he would collect all he could before the admiral departed, but he begged him not to go. The king and one of his brothers, with another very intimate relation, dined with the admiral, and the two latter said they wished to go to Castile with him. At this time the news came that the caravel Pinta was in a river at the end of this island. Presently the cacique sent a canoe there, and the admiral sent a sailor in it, for it was wonderful how devoted the cacique was to the admiral. The necessity was now evident of hurrying on preparations for the return to Castile. Friday, 28th of December. The admiral went on shore to give orders and hurry on the work of building the fort, and to settle what men should remain behind. The king, it would seem, had watched him getting into the boat, and quickly went into his house, dissimulating, sending one of his brothers to receive the admiral and conduct him to one of the houses that had been set aside for the Spaniards, which was the largest and best in the town. In it there was a couch made of palm matting, where they sat down. Afterward the brother sent an attendant to say that the admiral was there, as if the king did not know that he had come. The admiral, however, believed that this was a feint in order to do him honor more. The attendant gave the message, and the cacique came in great haste and put a large soft piece of gold he had in his hand round the admiral's neck. They remained together until the evening, arranging what had to be done. Saturday, 29th of December. A very youthful nephew of the king came to the caravel at sunrise, who showed a good understanding and disposition. As the admiral was always working to find out the origin of the gold, he asked everyone, for he could now understand somewhat by signs. This youth told him that at a distance of 4 days' journey, there was an island to the eastward called Guarionex, and others called Macorix, Mayonic, Fuma, Cibao, and Corowai, in which there was plenty of gold. The admiral wrote these names down and now understood what had been said by a brother of the king, who was annoyed with him, as the admiral understood. At other times the admiral had suspected that the king had worked against his knowing where the gold had its origin and was collected, that he might not go away to barter in another part of the island. For there are such a number of places in this same island that it is wonderful. After nightfall the king sent a large mask of gold and asked for a wash-hand basin and jug. The admiral thought he wanted them for patterns to copy from, and therefore sent them. Sunday, 30th of December. The admiral went on shore to dinner and came at a time when 5 kings had arrived, all with their crowns, who were subject to this king named Guacanagari. They represented a very good state of affairs, and the admiral says to the sovereigns that it would have given them pleasure to see the manner of their arrival. On landing, the admiral was received by the king, who led him by the arms to the same house where he was yesterday, where there were chairs and a couch on which the admiral sat. Presently the king took the crown off his head and put it on the admiral's head, and the admiral took from his neck a collar of beautiful beads of several different colors, which looked very well in all its parts, and put it on the king. He also took off a cloak of fine material, in which he had dressed himself that day, and dressed the king in it, and sent for some colored boots, which he put on his feet, and he put a large silver ring on his finger, because he had heard that he had admired greatly a silver ornament worn by one of the sailors. The king was highly delighted and well satisfied, and 2 of those kings who were with him came with him to where the admiral was, and each gave him a piece of gold. At this time, an Indian came and reported that it was 2 days since he left the caravel Pinta in a port to the eastward. The admiral returned to the caravel, and Vincent Annis, the captain, said that he had seen the rhubarb plant, and that they had it on the island Amiga, which is at the entrance of the Sea of Santo Tomé, 6 leagues off, and that he had recognized the branches and roots. They say that rhubarb forms small branches above ground, and fruit like green mulberries, almost dry, and the stalk near the root is as yellow and delicate as the best color for painting, and underground the root grows like a large pear. Monday, 31st of December. Today the admiral was occupied in seeing that water and fuel were taken on board for the voyage to Spain to give early notice to the sovereigns, that they might dispatch ships to complete the discoveries. For now the business appeared to be so great and important that the admiral was astonished. He did not wish to go until he had examined all the land to the eastward and explored the coast so as to know the route to Castile, with a view to sending sheep and cattle. But as he had been left with only a single vessel, it did not appear prudent to encounter the dangers that are inevitable in making discoveries. He complained that all this inconvenience had been caused by the caravel Pinta having parted company. Tuesday, 1st of January, 1493. At midnight, the admiral sent a boat to the island Amiga to bring the rhubarb. It returned at vespers with a bundle of it. They did not bring more because they had no spade to dig it up with. It was taken to be shown to the sovereigns. The king of that land said that he had sent many canoes for gold. The canoe returned that had been sent for tidings of the Pinta without having found her. The sailor who went in the canoe said that 20 leagues from there he had seen a king who wore 2 large plates of gold on his head, but when the Indians in the canoe spoke to him, he took them off. He also saw much gold on other people. The admiral considered that the king Guacanagari ought to have prohibited his people from selling gold to the Christians in order that it might all pass through his hands. But the king knew the places, as before stated, where there was such a quantity that it was not valued. The supply of spices also is extensive and is worth more than pepper or manigueta. He left instructions to those who wished to remain that they were to collect as much as they could. Wednesday, 2nd of January. In the morning, the admiral went on shore to take leave of the king, Guacanagari, and to depart from him in the name of the Lord. He gave him one of his shirts. In order to show him the force of the Lombards and what effect they had, he ordered one to be loaded and fired into the side of the ship that was on shore, for this was apposite to the conversation respecting the Caribs, with whom Guacanagari was at war. The king saw whence the Lombard shot came, and how it passed through the side of the ship and went far away over the sea. The admiral also ordered a skirmish of the crews of the ships, fully armed, saying to the cacique that he need have no fear of the Caribs, even if they should come. All this was done that the king might look upon the men who were left behind as friends, and that he might also have a proper fear of them. The king took the admiral to dinner at the house where he was established, and the others who came with him. The admiral strongly recommended to his friendship Diego de Arana, Pedro Gutierrez, and Rodrigo Escovedo, whom he left jointly as his lieutenants over the people who remained behind, that all might be well regulated and governed for service of their highnesses. The cacique showed much love for the admiral, and great sorrow at his departure, especially when he saw him go on board. A relation of that king said to the admiral that he had ordered a statue of pure gold to be made, as big as the admiral, and that it would be brought within 10 days. The admiral embarked with the intention of sailing presently, but there was no wind. He left on that island of Española, which the Indians called Bojio, 39 men with the fortress, and he says that they were great friends of Guacanagari. The lieutenants placed over them were Diego de Arana of Cordova, Pedro Gutierrez, keeper of the king's drawing room, and servant of the chief butler, and Rodrigo de Escovedo, a native of Segovia, nephew of Fray Rodrigo Perez, with all the powers he himself received from the sovereigns. He left behind all the merchandise which had been provided for bartering, which was much, that they might trade for gold. He also left the ship's boat, that they, most of them being sailors, might go, when the time seemed convenient, to discover the gold mine in order that the admiral, on his return, might find much gold. They were also to find a good site for a town, for this was not altogether a desirable port, especially as the gold the natives brought came from the east. Also, the farther to the east, the nearer to Spain. He also left seeds for sowing, and his officers, the alguazil and secretary, as well as a ship's carpenter, a caulker, a good gunner familiar with engineering, a cooper, a physician, and a tailor, all being seamen as well. Thursday, 3rd of January. The admiral did not go today because 3 of the Indians whom he had brought from the islands and who had stayed behind arrived, and said that the others with their women would be there at sunrise. The sea also was rather rough, so that they could not land from the boat. He determined to depart tomorrow with the grace of God. The admiral said that if he had the caravel pinta with him, he could make sure of shipping a ton of gold, because he could then follow the coasts of these islands, which he would not do alone for fear some accident might impede his return to Castile and prevent him from reporting all he had discovered to the sovereigns. If it was certain that the caravel pinta would arrive safely in Spain with Martin Alonso Pinzon, he would not hesitate to act as he desired. But as he had no certain tidings of him, and as he might return and tell lies to the sovereigns, that he might not receive the punishment he deserved for having done so much harm in having parted company without permission and impeded the good service that might have been done, the admiral could only trust in our Lord that he would grant favorable weather and remedy all things.